All right. Thank you again for tuning in. This is my coverage of the exclusive right to sell listing agreement. As I've probably already described to you in our face to face or virtual meeting, this is the agreement that hires me to be the agent to sell your house. Okay, so we're going to go through this. A lot of this I've already talked with you about, so I'm really going to be hitting the high points. I do encourage you to read this word for word when you receive it electronically so that you fully understand. And I also encourage you to reach out to me with any and all questions that you have. Okay, so it starts out by identifying who's entering into this agreement, right? So it's going to have your name on that first line as the seller, and then it's going to have Keller Williams Ballantyne, the firm that I work with, on that second line as the firm, and then that's how we'll be referred to for the rest of the agreement. Okay. Again, just hitting the high points. Oh, look at how my thing is trying to take over. Okay, just hitting the high points here. Something important to note here is that you can only be in one listing agreement at a time for one property. Okay, so this is basically you saying that you are not currently in another listing agreement and you are able to sign this listing agreement. Number one here discusses the term of the agreement. So listing agreements are for a very specific amount of time. My listing agreements are 6 months. Unless I have a reason to do one for a longer or a shorter period of time, my listing agreement terms are 6 months. All right. So the expert, I apologize that this is kind of jumping all over the place. My goodness, what's happening here? Okay, maybe that'll get it. All right. I love technology. All right. So wow, it is all over the place. Okay. Let's see. Maybe let's try it this way. There we go. There we go. Okay, so it's also going to identify the property. So we're going to have under number two of your property, and that goes all the way down through here. We even want to know what deed book and what page it's on, the whole thing. And then it jumps to number three and it talks about fixtures and exclusions. I'm not going to spend a lot of time here because during our listing appointment, I discussed in detail what fixtures are. This is another listing of all of the things that are considered fixtures. Most important thing to realize here is if you decide that you are taking any of these things with you, absolutely okay. We just have to disclose it. Okay. So that is that. Every page of the listing agreement will have a place for you to initial and a place for me to initial as well. Because again, this is an agreement between you and the firm. Last thing there is that now that we have smart devices and things like that, you will be responsible for unpairing and deleting data from all of your smart devices. Alrighty, and then this goes on in D to talk more about fixtures here. So if anything like a satellite dish, things that are leased and not owned, that would be typically left behind. If you are not leaving those items behind, then you would have to disclose that here. And then if there are other things that are not going to convey that would be considered fixtures, you would put them under E. That's things like chandeliers and light fixtures, bolted in mirrors and things like that. If you wanted to put those things there because you plan to take them with you, then you'd put them in E. Personal property that'll be transferred to the buyer at closing. That's generally where we're going to list your refrigerator. And should you decide to leave your washer and dryer, washer and dryer would also be listed. All right, your home warranty there on number five, you either agree or you don't to provide a home warranty. Listing price, very important, probably the most important thing here. listing price. We are listing your property for the agreed upon amount and then under the following terms, and then we'll determine if that should be cash, FHA, VA, USDA if it applies, conventional loans, or loan assumption, seller financing, lots of options there. You will determine which of those options you would like to provide for the buyers. Number seven is firm's compensation. That is the fee that we charge to list a home. We charge 6%. As discussed in our appointment, we charge 6% to list a house. All right, and then this goes into when exactly is that fee determined, when is fee earned. So some interesting information there. We basically collect the fee at closing. Let's see, then it goes into the fee is due and payable, basically at closing. Transfer of interest in business entity, if that applies, we've already discussed that. More than likely it does not. Additional compensation, if that applies, we've already discussed that. More than likely it does not. Attorney fees and attorney fees and costs. You can read over that as well about if we should get into any sort of legal proceeding. Number 8 talks about cooperation with other firms. This is speaking directly to the buyer's agent. So as we discussed in our meeting, I do cooperate with buyer's agents who actually represent the buyer. So that is this option, the second option here. And we agree to pay them 3% or half of the commission that you are paying. So that way we do a very equitable split of 3% for the agent that brings the buyer, as well as 3% for the listing firm. All right, this gets into the firm's duties under number 9 here. And our duties are to our duties are to use our best efforts to find a buyer, disclosure of material disclosure of material terms of the offer, disclosure of material facts, and then other professional services. So if I had to recommend someone, like after the inspection or something like that, I had to recommend a contractor or anyone like that, I would want to document that as part of the transaction, that we brought another professional to the transaction. I apologize, my allergies are challenging. Let's see, so providing agreement to listing service. So we would also be responsible for furnishing a copy of this to the multiple listing service so that we can have your listing on the multiple listing service so that it can syndicate to all of the other websites. And then of course we have our non-discrimination clause there. Very important that you initial that. The marketing, this is again submitting to the listing service, and that is absolutely the biggest piece of marketing that we do. Then the actual commencement of marketing here, this is the firm is authorized to commence marketing the property as described in blah, 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 on a specific date, either the effective date, which is the date that we both signed this agreement, or on another date that you determine, and we will insert that date as well. Excuse me. All righty, and then we'll go into the marketing authorization. Like I said, just hitting the high points here. These are all of the ways that we can market the property. We've discussed these at your appointment, and you've probably already determined the ways in which you would like us to market the property for you. Okay, lock boxes. We will use a lockbox, and it's an electronic Supra lockbox that only realtors can access. Okay. Excuse me. And then there's a seller acknowledgement here that just basically says that we're not responsible for unauthorized use of a lockbox. Again, we use an electronic Supra box, and so there really can't be unauthorized use unless someone literally cuts it off the door. And then it goes into the other things that are just outside of our control there. Okay, we're going to jump down here to this warning. While it is totally fine if you have video cameras and surveillance inside of your property, while people are viewing it, you just cannot listen to them. So you can watch them, but you cannot listen to them. All right, office exclusive. This is what we do when we don't necessarily want to take a listing all the way to market. There are 600 agents in my office in Ballantyne. And so if you only wanted to market your listing to the agents in my firm, then we do it also office exclusive to limit the traffic through the home. Okay, then we'll come on down here. Okay, earnest money doesn't apply. We no longer hold earnest money, and that's for buyers or sellers. All right. And then here's the seller representations. These are the things that you know to be true about your house. So it goes into each of these questions that we'll answer, and it's the flood hazard, synthetic stucco, owners association, if there is an owners association. Now, we've probably already discussed all of this in our meeting, so more than likely I will have already filled this out based on the information that you have given. So when you receive the listing agreement, you're more checking it for accuracy than actually filling it out, because I will have already gotten all of the information needed to fill out the listing agreement. Okay, so this is all owners association information here. We go down and, it asks if you have a termite bond on the property and is it transferable. Also need to know if you've owned the property for at least a year. And that just has to do with the kind of financing that we're able to take on the property. And then an acknowledgement of the receipt of sample forms. You have a video just like this where we go through all of the wonderful forms, the offer to purchase and contract, as well as the professional services disclosure. So that is what that is referring to. Current liens, we do have to disclose on the listing agreement who your mortgage is with and the approximate value, approximate loan balance. You've already given me that information, so that'll already be filled out for you there. All right, we have to ask the questions about bankruptcy. Those will already be filled out, as I already asked you those questions as well. Then it's talking about whether or not we've got public roads, if there's a lease on the property, if there's been an FHA appraisal on the property, any special assessments for the property, or any planned special assessments for the property is what this is talking about. And then specifically, are we dealing with a mobile home? Are there any fuel tanks on the property? That sort of thing. Get down here to number 13, we're into the seller's duties. Now, the seller's duties at this point are to fill out the residential property and owners association disclosure statement, the mineral oil and gas rights disclosure statement, as well as the lead-based paint disclosure. Now, there are videos on those. If you're lead-based paint, if you have to do lead-based paint, it's because your house was built in 1978 or before. So if not, if your house was built after 1978, don't worry about the lead-based paint, but you will need to fill out both the residential property disclosure as well as the mineral oil and gas rights disclosure. Okay. And then we would also, if you have access to the restrictive covenants affecting the property, I'd ask you for a copy of those, as well as any bylaws, articles of incorporation, rules and regulations, or other governing documents for the HOA. All right, as well as any title insurance policies and all of the like there. Okay. So, and that is pretty much it on that. And then it does say that you are authorizing that the attorney can do your title search and everything to ensure that you can convey the property. Okay. And that you will be able to deliver a general warranty deed at closing. Alrighty. And you're also saying that there are no circumstances that would prohibit you from conveying the title to the home there, if any. Goodness gracious. Okay, and so short sale probably doesn't apply here. Okay, then we're getting down into the home inspection. You either agree or don't to get a home inspection within a certain number of days of the agreement. We've already discussed that. Whether or not you choose to do that, that'll already be marked for you. And then you're also acknowledging that you received a copy of the questions and answers on home inspections. Number 15 is photographs and other materials. We do professional photography for your to market your listing. So once we have those professional photos and we upload them and all that stuff, they are only to be used for the sale of your house by myself. So if for some reason your house were to not sell, you're not authorized to continue to use those photos to sell your home if you were to decide to sell it yourself. That's what that is referring to. All right, additional terms and conditions. There are probably none. If there are any additional terms and conditions, we have probably discussed them already, but they'll be listed there if there are. Dual agency. Dual agency refers directly to if, while I'm representing you, I also have a buyer that I represent. And if that buyer were interested in making an offer on your property, and if you were to allow me to mediate that and control the entire transaction, that would be called dual agency, representing both the buyer and the seller in the same transaction. So there's some information there about that. Now you do want to come down here and you're either going to authorize the firm to be a dual agent, which you want to do. That's going to be your first set of boxes there. You want to authorize my firm to be a dual agent because there are 600 agents at my firm. And if you don't allow the firm to be a dual agent, then that means that no agent in my firm can put an offer on your property. So you want to, at least if nothing else, allow the firm to be a dual agent and then have designated agents inside the firm, myself working for you and then someone else within my firm working for the buyer. So that would be the first set of blocks there that you want to initial. All right, if for some reason there's a dispute that arises, we'd go to mediation before there would be any sort of litigation, so to speak. So that's what number 18 is referring to. Number 19 is saying that wire fraud is a thing. So no one during the time that we are no one during the time that we are in a business relationship should ask you for any sensitive information other than the buyer's attorney. They will need your social security number so that they can do the title search. My recommendation, as I'm sure I told you in person or virtually, is that you would call that in to the attorney instead of emailing it. Okay. And no one should be asking for your wiring instructions or anything like that electronically. All righty. And we are actually at the end of this agreement. And so what you'll do is go ahead and sign this agreement. And on the day that you and I both sign it, then we are actually in a listing relationship at that point. And then on the day that we decide that your house will be live on the market, we will market it. And this agreement will govern that transaction throughout the time that it's listed. All right, so you'll sign here, and I believe that's it. You'll sign, I'll sign, and that'll be all good. I apologize for my stuffiness, but that is the listing agreement. Please let me know if you have any questions, and thank you so much for watching.